hunters keep common human New Year's resolutions, but for our animals all year round. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about how in order to stay healthy, humans and animals alike need to keep hydrated with water. We are going to be doing about a 10-minute talk, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions at the end. And if you missed some information, don't worry, this is recorded, so it will be on our Facebook after we have finished the live. Again, my name is Bella, so let's get into it. First, let's talk about how toads live in the wild. So smooth-sided toads do come from the Amazon, and like all toads, like all amphibians, they need water to live, to survive, for a couple of different reasons. One of those reasons is because they have to lay their eggs in or near water. And that's because their eggs don't have a shell. When we think of eggs, we usually think of chicken eggs. And they have a pretty hard shell on them. You have to crack them, right? But these guys will lay their eggs as little like jelly bean type things. So they're pretty squishy, and they need a lot of water to stay moist so that they don't desiccate or dry out. And actually, the same thing goes for regular grown-up frogs and toads. They actually need water so that they don't dry out. Because when they dry out, it can make them all wrinkly and they can get a little crunchy, and we definitely don't want that happening. Now, toads, frogs, amphibians, basically they're found everywhere in the world for the most part, and in lots of different climates, but the one thing that they have in common is that they are found near water. And the biggest reason for that, of all of the reasons that we've talked about so far, is that they breathe and drink through their skin. So Naveen here is sitting on top of some of his substrate, his dirt that he lives on, and it's really soggy, it's moist. So that's because he has to have moisture all around him in order to breathe. When he's sitting on this dirt, he's actually, he has a little patch on his belly that is able to absorb all of the water in it. And just like fish use their lungs to breathe through water, these guys can use that patch to get oxygen out of water in anything. So he could sit in just this pile of dirt and suck it up until it was dry dust. And that's a really cool thing. It's called cutaneous respiration. So they are able to breathe through all of their skin here. It's porous, so it has a bunch of little holes in it, and it sucks up all of that moisture, and that's how they are able to stay alive. Some amphibians will, like axolotls, will use water to get up to 95% of their oxygen. So they don't even really need air in some cases, which is pretty awesome. That's actually where they get the name amphibian, which means double life. So they live on the water and in the land. The difference between frogs and toads, though, is that frogs are usually found more near bodies of water, and they do a lot more swimming, whereas toads are pretty much happy to just chill in the mud. Smooth-sided toads, like Naveen here, really love to just sit in the mud. That's why he kind of looks like a rock or a leaf. If you were able to see us as zoo lights, you might have seen him at the end of the night out with his other brothers, teaching people all about how toads live and survive. And a lot of people would tell us that he looked like he was just a rock sitting in his enclosure, and that's because that's what he wants to look like. These guys are ambush predators, so they just want to blend into their environment. We call that camouflage. So you'll see we got leaves here, but we have them turned over because he's brown. So he blends in more with dirt and with leaves that have already fallen instead of leaves that are up in trees. A typical frog that you might see is called the green tree frog. And those guys are green because they're blending in with the leaves that are up in trees. But once they fall down, they're going to blend in more with toads. So you might see him jumping around a little bit, exploring, but for the most part, toads will spend a lot of their time just sitting in the mud, staying moist, and waiting for food to come to them. But they are really awesome little animals, actually, because they help us to test water quality. And they're what we call an indicator species. All amphibians are. Because when they're drinking in their water, they're also taking in any other liquid that might be in the ground or in the water. So sometimes if you have oil on your hand, like lotion or sunscreen or something like that, it can get into water. And these guys can actually drink what's in water. So when I'm handling him right now, my hands are very, very clean. I've washed them fresh, and I also have special water that I use with him to make sure that there's nothing icky on my hands that he could possibly take in. Because for us, it would be like drinking lotion or hand sanitizer or something that we wouldn't want inside of our bodies. So he does a good job of making sure to tell us what's in our water, because there are a lot of things that can pollute our waterways. So when something bad gets into the water around us, it usually can cause issues with amphibians first. Things like gasoline and chemicals and waste can get dumped into water, and we drink filtered water, so we get rid of all of that bad stuff. But these guys live out in the wild, so they are the filters. So everything goes through their body first, which is really unfortunate when there are bad things in the water. And the reason we want to keep them around is because they tell us when there's bad things in the water. Again, you call them indicator species because they indicate water quality. So if you've ever been to a lake or a river, you might have heard these guys calling, or another type of amphibian calling, and you might even see them, which is really cool. But if you don't hear anything, if you don't see anything, or even if you see some dead guys, then it's probably an indication that that water's not safe. So that's really useful for us when we're out hiking or something like that, when we might not know the exact quality of the water around us. So they're really important to telling us what's going on around us. And they're also important just in their ecosystem, the way that they are. These guys are awesome at what they do, which is eating bugs. So they help to keep down populations of bugs like mosquitoes and grasshoppers and cockroaches, things that we might also not want in our homes. But also, that helps to keep balance in the ecosystem. If there are too many mosquitoes, it can throw off a lot of other things, as well as if there aren't enough toads or frogs, because some animals eat these guys. We actually have a species in the southwest of the country called the hognose. We also have an eastern hognose as well, and they specifically like to eat toads and frogs. That's their favorite thing to eat. That's really all that they want to eat most of the time. So if they can't eat because there are none of these guys, then they go away too. And then there could also be too many frogs or toads. There could also be not enough food for maybe a hawk that eats snakes. So there's a lot of butterfly effects that happen when these guys aren't around because of reduced water quality. But there are a lot of things that we can do. It's not hopeless at all. There are so many options for us. And the number one thing that you can do at home, no matter where you are, what you're doing, what your age is to remember the 3 R's, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle. We can reduce the amount of things that we buy in little plastic packages or things like that by trying to buy things or grow things in a better way that don't require that packaging. You can also reduce the amount of single-use things that you're using. You can use silverware instead of using plasticware, or you can get bamboo silverware, which I really like because you can take that around, and then when it breaks, you can actually just compost it. And then you can reduce, reuse anything that you have laying around. So if you do have to use a plastic bag from at the grocery store, you can reuse it as another trash bag, as a cat litter box. And then you can also recycle things. You can use a recycling plant, you can have your own compost in your backyard, and you can also find different ways to reuse things. We like to do crafts with toilet paper rolls and make new toys out of them. So there are a lot of different options that you can do that won't change a whole lot in your life. Another thing that you can do is to make sure that when you're out enjoying nature, that you don't litter and that you're not dumping anything into the water, including things like soda and stuff that you wouldn't think would be bad. You want to make sure that you leave the environment cleaner than when it was there. So if you can pick up an extra piece of trash, or just make sure that all of your trash is secure, you're going to help these guys out, because there are chemicals and things, and while they might not affect us, they can definitely affect these guys. They're highly sensitive to their environments. So by doing all of that, you will help these guys out, and in turn, they can continue to help us out. Another way that you can make sure to help these guys out is to clean your equipment after you hike or fish or go out on a boat. You want to make sure that you're not taking anything with you to a new area. So if you go hiking here and then you're going on vacation to, let's say, Colorado, you want to make sure that you clean off your shoes and any other gear that you use before you go hiking somewhere else, because you could carry something that could hurt these guys. Now, there are a lot of other ways that you can help. I'm just going to move him back into his soil here so he stays nice and hydrated. But those are some pretty easy ways that you can not change your life too much, but still reduce any impact that you might have had on these guys. So if you can think of other things, feel free to leave those in the comments. And we thank you for wanting to learn about our toad here. Again, in order to stay healthy, both humans and animals alike have to stay hydrated with water. And a lot of people have the New Year's resolution to stay hydrated, and you can learn a lot from toads in doing so. But I think that's it for my little spiel. So do we have any questions, Aliana?
So right now we don't have any questions about Naveen here. We do have some greetings from Ireland, which is fun.
Hi Ireland, I'm Irish.
But so I want to know, so maybe either your favorite fact about smooth-sided toads to wrap things up, or just your favorite fun fact about amphibians in general.
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. So amphibians are really, really cool. Not only because they are indicator species, but also because they have a lot of regenerative abilities. So basically, these guys can grow back limbs. They have abilities that even go beyond lizards losing their tails and regrowing them. Sometimes they can grow back spinal tissue. So they are incredible, and they're super useful to us when we're studying how to better help people. We actually have a research program here that helps out the Dusky Gopher frog, and that's where we got Naveen. He is a smooth-sided toad, but because we were able to study the way that he grew up, we were able to study the Dusky Gopher frog as well, and we released 2,500 of those guys back into the wild. Now, there were only 135 of them left, and they were only found in one particular place in Mississippi. So they were highly endangered, and they were in a lot of trouble. But because of little Naveen here, who is now in his retirement at only about 4 years of age, we were able to help them out and to re-release them back into the wild. So that's a pretty cool thing that amphibians can help each other out, and that also we were able to do here at the Memphis Zoo.
Very cool. So we have, I think to end things out, we did get a couple questions that we're going to do kind of a lightning round. So what's in the water that you put like on your hands to be able to handle Naveen?
That's a really good question. So we use something called ReptiSafe, but technically you don't have to put anything into the water. It's what's already in the water. So it's called dechlorinated water, and that's because you want the chlorine that we keep in our water to make sure that it's clean for us. You want that to be gone for these guys. It's basically distilled water, which is what you can buy at the grocery store. But also, if you leave water out with no lid on for 72 hours, all of the chlorine will have evaporated. And that's just what we have to do to make sure that this guy doesn't soak up too much chlorine.
All right. And then where does Naveen live here at the zoo?
Naveen is one of our ambassadors. He lives with his two brothers, Eric and Charming, and they live behind the scenes because they are animal ambassadors, which means that they come out all the time to teach people about animals, but then they get to go back and relax.
And then I think our last question is one from Tracy. She says she lives in Northeast Pennsylvania, and she's wondering where her summer frog and toad visitors go during the winter.
That's a really awesome question, Tracy. So during the winter, there are a couple of different things that toads and frogs can do. Some species of toads and frogs will just bury themselves deep into the mud where it's still moist, and they kind of go into hibernation like we think of bears, but these guys will actually go fully to sleep, and they won't eat or do anything. But there's a couple of other species of toad and frog that can actually form a cocoon, which is really crazy. So these guys have to shed their skin in order to grow, but in the wintertime, they will shed their skin and keep it on themselves to form an air and moisture bubble. So they're able to just stay in their skin cocoon all winter, which is pretty awesome. But I think that's all we have for you guys today. Again, stay hydrated for the new year. As humans, we need water, but so do these guys, and there are lots of different things that you can do to help them out, like reducing, reusing, and recycling. So it's me and Naveen signing off from here at the Memphis